What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the VSO Gun Channel. It's great to be here as always, and thank you for watching. Today, we're going to be talking about a case out of the Supreme Court. It is Murthy v. Missouri, and most of the people that are going to be reporting this case to you are going to be recording it as a loss for the First Amendment. And while I agree with their assessment on that, I think there's a lot more in there that you actually have to take into account. And that means looking at the dissent. So this was a 6-3 decision, and Alito wrote the dissent. Who wrote the, forget who wrote the 68 pages. Barrett wrote the main opinion. But what the opinion says, the main opinion says, is there's a lot of evidence here. And because there's so much evidence, we have to consider whether our time is well spent to go through that evidence, considering that we don't think that the state of Missouri has standing on this. Basically, they said the state of Missouri isn't materially damaged by this. So because there's a lot of work to do here, we're going to punt this back down to the lower court and let them go at it. We're not going to deal with this thing right now. However, if you read what the dissent says, I think that it tells you quite substantially what the Supreme Court's mind on censorship as it relates to social media is concerned. That's what we're going to talk about in today's video after we hear a quick word from today's sponsor. All right, you want to know something new that's really lame? This video keeps getting demonetized because it has an excess sponsorship and it has a picture of a site. So can't do that anymore, apparently, because that makes somebody mad. So today's video is brought to you by Excess Sites. I've been using their sites for forever. They're awesome, and you should look into them. Special thanks to Excess Sites for making today's video possible. So absolutely lame. And you wonder why platforms like Rumble are really gaining ground on YouTube. Now, to set the stage so that we're all on the same page, this case has to deal with the and Facebook being influenced by government officials to remove certain types of content. But you can insert anybody's name there. And I'll get to how that applies to firearms stuff here in a little bit. But just so that you understand the intricacies of where we are, so that if you see any references in what I'm going to say. Now, I'm also going to be light on the actual screenshots from the case because there's a lot of language and to the point of what the court is saying here and the plaintiffs. I'm not going to even show those words. If they show up in any of my shots, I'm going to have to redact them because this video will be negatively impacted by that, even all these years later. Government efforts to dictate the subject about which persons may speak, reference, or to suppress protected speech are presumptively unconstitutional, reference. And that is so regardless of whether the government carries out the censorship itself or uses a third party to accomplish what is constitutionally forbidden, reference. As the court held more than 60 years ago in reference, the government may not coerce or intimidate a third-party intermediary into suppressing someone else's speech. The government's primary response is Facebook occasionally declined to take its suggestions, reference. The implication is that Facebook must have chosen to undertake all of its anti-misinformation efforts entirely of its own accord. That is bad logic, and in the event, the record shows otherwise. It is true that Facebook voluntarily undertook some anti-misinformation efforts and that it declined to make some requested policy changes. But the interactions recounted above unmistakably show that the White House was interested that Facebook should do more than it was doing on its own. And Facebook repeatedly yielded, even if it did not always give the White House everything that it wanted. Internal Facebook emails paint a clear picture of subservience. The platform, keyword platform, quickly realized that its handling of misinformation was important to the White House, so it looked for ways to be viewed as a trusted, transparent partner and avoid public spats. For these reasons, I would hold that the plaintiff is likely to prevail on her claim that the White House coerced Facebook into censoring her speech. For months, high-ranking government officials placed unrelenting pressure on Facebook to suppress Americans' free speech. Because the court unjustifiably refuses to address this serious threat to the First Amendment, I respectfully dissent. So as I mentioned in the intro, the court basically says, come back with standing, because the states, they're saying that the states can't sue on behalf of their citizens in this instance, which I think is absolutely wrong. But if someone were to generate standing by, being financially damaged by one of these platforms for doing this, then they would have standing to combat censorship in the courts. Bringing it home to firearms, you'll notice that they said platform there. And the 230 protections for platforms that we've talked about numerous times on this channel basically say that these platforms cannot censor political speech. They cannot censor speech at all unless it is in line with FCC regulations. Things like profanity, obscenity, graphic violence, pornography, etc., right? That sort of stuff. Even though that sort of stuff is totally findable on this platform. Bringing this home to YouTube, what I would say is I've made multiple videos on this, but the firearms online video community, the creator community that is currently making videos on Second Amendment related topics is under attack. We have been targeted. We are being persecuted. I've made all the videos on this up to this point. And the Supreme Court basically just said, if somebody shows up here with standing, we're going to wreck house. This sort of thing has a clear linkage with the political rhetoric that is being put out by various entities in our government, namely, in this instance, the White House, but it also says other government agencies in there. And we all know that the Office of Gun Violence Prevention is stacked with a whole bunch of anti-gun activists, many of which are out there writing the articles that drive the popular narratives in the mainstream corporate media. And as far as standing is concerned, I'm currently being financially damaged. I did a video just a couple days ago on the video that was impacted by the policy changes. A video, I might add, by the way, was targeted in a hit piece by Media Matters, which we know they directly coordinate with sources in the White House to drive policy. That's well established at this point in time. That video has been age restricted, and the traffic on that video has plummeted. So I say again to YouTube, stop doing what you're doing. You're going to get your 230 protections pierced. You keep doing what you're doing, you're going to end up right here, and we will have standing when we get there because we will have been financially damaged by the time we get there. It's happening right now. Reverse your policy, roll it back 10 years, get all the political crap that's not grounded in law whatsoever out of your policy as it relates to firearms content regulation on your platform, and maybe you can avoid ending up in the hot seat. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Remember that the House of Representatives just subpoenaed YouTube on this very type of activity.